مرحبا مرة أخرى نعود
Again, welcome to you all, and after this long discussion this morning and before this panel, we cannot talk about change when we don't speak about the young generation, the youth, and what they want of the changes. And because youth is the basis of change, and they are the people, the young girls are the people who are looking into the future and waiting for many participants who want to take part in this discussion online. We have with us Ludia Raymond Alberme from Basra, and we would like to hear from you, Ludia, what you want to say about the role of women in peace making, peace building, and what do you expect in Iraq as a young woman? Oh, we have some technical issues again. So now, please, Ludia, we are hearing you. We are hearing you. First of all, I'm 27 years old. I'm from Basra, and I'm several activist since 2011, and I'm politically active since that time in Basra when the crisis and the clashes started in Basra, especially after 2018. And as participant in the protests, I also started founding or organizing a women's demonstration, fighting or demanding our rights. And this was my start in the political field. In the women's movement of Basra, and this area, of course, we want to defend human rights and especially women's rights, and this aspect has become part of my life. And at the moment, I am in the region of Kurdistan, also in order to take part in demonstrations, and also there's also defending my motivation to take part in such demonstrations. This was because I wanted that we as women wanted to call for our rights and to get our rights, and especially that we defend our right to protest, and especially in Basra, as in a tribal society, women live in a very fundamental way and a normal way, and it was very it was, of course, a critical step for me to start these protests and to take part in these. And we have not so far achieved the results we want to achieve. This is left to the future. This is by broad participation. And in order to change the current situation in Basra.
Is there someone else?
هل هناك واحد ثاني؟ Thank you, Ludia, and we of course come back to you with questions. We have also Helen El-Wahed with us from Basra. She will talk about her personal experience and her belief, her role in this context. Thank you very much. My name is Dean Abdelwahed. I have a Bachelor of Law, and I defend women's rights. And of course, we need fundamental changes concerning the participation of women in decision-making. And when we see these negative aspects in the society in Iraq, to overcome this, we need steps in education, and of course women have always lived in marginalization, and their rights, they were deprived of their rights, and everything is to the benefit of women, and the rights of women as part of a democratic system, and so we want to guarantee these rights. Without this, we can't have a democracy in our country, and we do not separate between political and personal independence. Of course, we have this tribal conditions and customs, especially in the south, where women often do even not know what their rights are, and the revolution has changed the social concepts of the forming a new Iraq, and our people tries to get its rights now, and woman is now a force in the society. And the demonstrations have also formed a challenge for others, and given the chance to women to raise their voice in a way which was unknown previously, and this is part of a policy of protest now, and this of course also to demand the addressing of problems like abdication or violence and so on against women. And in these demonstrations, we know that this is not enough, but we are confident that we will be able in Iraq to form a new society, and this will be also be thanks to this protests and demonstrations. And of course, we have positive and negative changes. Among the positive changes is the wider participation in a new culture. We have a new culture now where women have a wider role in the political and also in the social aspects. But negative side is that there are still demonstrations that occurred, and now in October again, and we as activists we witnessed a lot of suppression, and by the various parties we were deprived of our rights and our voice there. And in the long run, I hope that there will be a new culture, and that these principles of a new society where women can have the rights and can have a voice in this society, and that this is really implemented, and this through organizations, but also by unorganized activities. Also, we have to face political Islam, and we have a bigger problem, because Iraq is not yet a democratic civil state, and it is not free of gender discrimination, of discrimination in general, and we want to overcome this. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. We're going to move on now to Inas Karim from Baghdad, so she can speak to us about her experience and her participation and her contribution in the process of change. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Inas Karim. I work as a lecturer. The change I've been taking part in was in the October Revolution. Before that, I was not a political activist. I was working with women and children, very basic and simple things, but which played eventually a big role. And then I got involved in work more, and on the 2nd of October, I started to get involved in the revolution. That was the starting point. And I was also exposed to a defamation campaign, and I've been going on till now. I've become more audacious because I've been telling myself that I have to get more involved in political affairs in Iraq so I can understand better what's really going on. What I've been contributing to in the October Revolution is that women have also been exposed to defamation. I've understood that I also was subject to this assault and this attack, where women were involved in political process and in demonstrations, and women were also involved in writing slogans and posters in the October Revolution. I'm really proud about this revolution, about the Rose demonstration and protest. Many people are trying to defamate women who participate in the revolution, and particularly in this October revolution. Thank you, Inas. Now we're going to move on to Dania Faraj, also from Baghdad, to speak about her experience. Well, hello. I'd like to present myself first. I'm Diana Faraj from Baghdad. I'm an engineer and I'm interested in politics. First of all, I was active in civil society, and then I started to get involved in political activism more when the October Revolution started and the protest movement started in Iraq. The revolution started because the living conditions were so bad for Iraqi population, and there was marginalization against women in Iraq. Of course, due to traditions and customs. I played a major role in the demonstrations. Men started it, but then women also have their say, and there are also issues that pertain to her, particularly women's issues. The protest movement and the political scene in Iraq is trying to get across the issues of women and children. So that's why women are so important in society. So women have not, society has now started to accept this presence of women, because we are very thirsty and very much longing to see such areas in the political field and the social field as well. Because of what has been left back by the Islamist religious parties. So the society was actually ready for breaking up these stereotypes of women in the Iraqi society. I think we have a power cut here. This is part of the challenge. But we can at least still see you, maybe not hear you, maybe not see you. Of course, I participated in recording and documenting what was happening, and now it's gone. It seems we have a problem here. We lost connection with her. Maybe we can get back to her, or maybe we might listen to Ru'a's experience from Nasiriyah. Hello. Can you hear me, Diana? If you're back, please go on, complete what you were about to say. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear you. Yes, yes, you can hear us? Yes, we can both hear you. Oh, sorry. We're going to get back to you once Diana is done. Please, Diana. Finished. I was just speaking about the role as a woman in the protest movement. I was mostly involved in reporting what was happening on the squares, so I sent in many videos and pictures because channels were silenced because they were also belonging to certain parties and they were not speaking up and not reporting anything. So I was trying to get in aid and also try to organize financial and medical support and supplies. And I think I've seen, even at the front lines, women and girls who were facing the smoke screen, and they were also playing an important role in organizing women's protests. There were 4 demonstrations, particularly for women at least, and that is an opportunity for us to bring our women's causes forward. Power cut again. Thank you, Diana. And we hope that power is going to be as much lit as you are lit up on the screen. That would be largely sufficient. From Nasiriyah. Let's get back to you and ask you about your personal experience. Hello. From the days of my middle school or secondary school, I've been politically active since I come from a politically active family. But my proactive involvement was in the demonstrations in October 2019. In the beginning, just as the others, there was a strong movement on the streets. There were strong attacks, and there were also protesters and demonstrators killed. We are requesting and demanding our rights more than you. We were insisting on being present there on the squares so we could also confirm the presence of women and that they play a role in the Iraqi society, in politics, and in the movement. And even from the protesters themselves, they were sometimes trying to get us away from the streets because not because they had certain convictions, but because they would think that that was a problem for them and that would weigh down on them. When we would lose a woman or when they was threatened, that is so that when students could get across their voices better. And that was something that motivated us so that they would respect the presence of women with them on the street. So young men. So also on social media we're asking already, we're wondering why were women not present today. It was not one of those who was leading also awareness sessions or meetings, where we would discuss elections and other such issues. We have seen a huge interaction also from the side of men, and they were also openly discussing with us women. They were either agreeing or opposed to what we were saying, but they were very respectful reactions, and they were not provocative and not diminishing our positions, such as is happening usually when we present our positions. So society usually puts that outside of its perspective. After a few months, I noticed that something had changed, that I was always included in dialogues, and I was always researched, and that had become completely normal. So that there were committees more than once. There was the delegation of the United Nations in Iraq. I was one of the first that was requested to be present there to represent young women in Iraq, and that's something excellent and something which has never been seen before. For me, a real change that has come about is that it is with the students in higher education institutions, in universities and in secondary schools, that both sexes are present in these places. That has never been the case. And this huge participation and involvement has never been seen like too. So we are both in there back again. So we work together in projects, in works, and in activities. And this is as if they rediscovered that behind the limits of religious and ethnic groups, there's another person who has shares the same values. So if we can get this message across that there have to be a cooperation between the two sexes, that would bring us a big step forward in Iraq.
Thank you very much, Roa, for your contribution. And I would like to ask Lodia, is it possible to tell us something about the situation in new Iraq? What has to be changed in order to give Iraqi women a basic role? How do you see this as a young woman in Iraq? I would like to go back to Basra and to take part in political and feminist activities together with others in Basra. I hope that we as defenders and activists in political and social life, that we get security and safety, that we get liberty, and this applies to young boys and girls in Iraq in general. We all want change, and I think now there's an institution, especially for women and girls in Basra, and they do really call girls and women for going out to the streets to defend women's rights. And of course, this is for this. It is very important to have security and safety, especially in this tribal society where women are really suffering of so many things. We should have the right to come together to form a united force, and that we are no longer suppressed persons in Iraq in general, despite of the suppression of women and also their neglect on the social media, or even arrest and even assassination. Women have not given up, and we will go ahead on this way because we are keen to change this country. And if it is then achieved, then of course the traditions and customs they should also be in the house and not outside. Diana, my question to you, and I hope, again, there's a power cut. It's normal. My question to you, how do you imagine an effective participation of women in Iraq, especially young women? And also a question from the audience to you. If there's a chance for taking part in political activities, not only religious, would you take this chance? Yes, of course, the political participation, especially for Iraqi youth, I think they have now the chance to form institutions or parties, civil or secular parties. There's a political area, a political space, and but a real change has not happened in elections, in the political structures. There, no chance is given to young people. The parties and civil parties, secular parties, they are not considering their dreams. And I think perhaps I will also run for a position, but we are the builders of our future, of Iraq. Our national mission and is from all personal motivation, on the basis of a personal motivation, is to build up a new Iraq. Perhaps another question to you, Helen. The influence of the patriarchal society and the social implications of that. What are the challenges for women in general, in your point of view? Social obstacles, especially in general in Iraq, but especially in the south. Of course, there are many obstacles, especially because it is a patriarchal society, with this problem we have in the Arab world in general, and women are often, active women are often refused by the society, even by their families, and so it is necessary to raise awareness when we want to build a new Iraq. And this requires also change of attitude. So what encourages me to play a social or political role is that this our homeland, our country is ours, and we should go together on this way. Question perhaps to Ru'a. I would like, you have talked about the interaction between both genders, and but if we look at the main points, education to you, and you are young, to what extent there's still this stereotype type, and does education really lead to a change in this approach? And your family, perhaps they also take part in this change. Is this also part of the motivation to go to the streets and to the demonstrations? Of course, this is important. I think from the very beginning, I was allowed to discuss, to ask why, and to speak about what was interesting for me. But then next step is to have a change and to find what is the correct view. And as far as I'm concerned, reading books and now it's interrupted. Oh, sorry. There's no connection. Again, we have a problem in communication. Ru'a? Can I ask, please? Have you come back to us? No, still this connection problems. Diana, if it is possible to answer this question, is there also patriarchal influence by the family? Is there any education? What has motivated you to become part of this process of change? Frankly spoken, my mother since 2010 takes part also in protests, and so we went together there. And so I was always in the streets and in the squares. And so we also wanted to demand our rights. So I was there at protests with engineers and with scientists, also against ministers. So we have also special demands, professional demands within our rights. And what is now has happened in the Iraqi streets, this protest culture has developed, and there are possibilities to raise protests. I think at the beginning, there were days when I didn't really perceive what is happening, there were I then saw by chance also pictures in the news, and I understood more and more. And as a result, our society, from the beginning, we said that we as a people, we shouldn't accept the current situation. We have to do something for change. Without this, we won't be able to do this. Do you think, Anas, that there is a coordination between the elder generation and the young generation? Is there any coordination? Is there any interaction for the same principles? Or are there differences? My point of view is that there are still differences between the young generation and the elder generation. I think most of mothers, and I talk about my mother, she wants that I take part in protests. She believes in rights and so on, but she still is afraid of what is happening. So the current new generation girls, they know it is difficult, but even in the most difficult places, they are present. And the elder generation, they didn't really try to change. And according to the time, to the circumstances, of course, in which they lived. And even now, when I speak about my mother, and I took part in the October demonstrations discussing these matters, I had the impression that all the women should take part, should accompany us, and it is I thought for myself, I should do this. I should take part, and I should express my ideas and on this occasion of the October marches and rallies. And while the elder generation, they at least listen to us. They listen what our ideas are and our proposals. The older generation, yes, of course, their ideas may be different of ours, but they have experience, and we have not enough experience. They have more experience. Thank you. Helen, can I ask you, what is your opinion? Is there a new culture after the October demonstrations? That means also among women? Yes, of course. In the past, I was surrounded by my girlfriends. There was a mix, but there was not so much political awareness, and we not have the awareness that the whole country should be changed. And also we didn't know what is organization. Now, after the October Revolution, we know what is politics, what does it mean, and what is possible, what should we do, and how can we change this. This is a very important culture now, and that we must do this through politics, and to overcome corruption, and to really make corrupt people accountable, and also the culture of a mixture between men and women has now emerged. This didn't exist in the past, but this October marches have changed this. And the worst place was the Tahrir Square. There were no women, but now we have women there without any fear.
Helen, if I were to ask you the same question regarding the issue, has the culture changed? Is there now an ambition to take on other forms so you can support the role of women in the struggle and in the conflict? So how can Iraq further foster the new role of young women? Helen? Are you receiving us, or is there a communications problem? Possibly. So maybe we can ask the same question to Ludia. Ludia, you mentioned that you faced numerous difficulties after your participation. Where do you see yourself or Iraq 5 years from now after this change? I'm from a family who is very far away from politics. So in a completely unnormal way, I don't know how I managed to end up with this in the past few months. I want to focus on something. If there is no security and safety and safe spaces for young women so that they can speak up and show their faces and hope to see all this change in the upcoming years. If women stay that united, and the change which might happen should be taken upon by even younger women, which, such as we saw in the October Revolution as well, students from the middle and secondary schools, they were also filling the squares. So that's a political awareness from a very young age for girls. This is going to create a new culture for the upcoming generation. So the emergence of a new political awareness from a very young age is something that is very much advanced by women, even on the societal level or on the political level. In the current government, women do not really play a role, but maybe they can do so in the upcoming future governments. Maybe activists and those who were present from the girls in the revolution. So we need to provide safe spaces for these women and girls so they can continue with the necessary change. Thank you very much. Helen, are you back with us? Can you hear us? Now the sound is clear. Helen, I'd like to ask you if you also would like to answer that question. Where would you like to see the situation in a few years from now? But also, someone said that on social media, young men are now asking, where are the young women? We need you. There is a real change happening. But social media, as we've seen during this conference in the past panels, it's a two-sided sword. Where do you see how far the impact can go by an Iraqi young woman to foster her role? And what's the challenge you are facing? The role is that she should take on more leadership roles so she can realize her political and social role. In the October Revolution, there was a real step forward in women taking part in public life. And this is also the basis for a more general, broader social culture, which emerged from the October Revolution. So we need to educate her and make her more aware much broadly. So there can be reactions either from organized sides or unorganized sides, particularly women, particularly in the South, is being hindered by parties after they went to the square that they take on positions. So we went out, we lifted the slogans of feminism in Basra. It was a very clear message. I remember something else from on the 25th of October 2019, there was a demonstration. We lifted feminist slogans, and now people started to ask, oh, Helen, what's that mean? What's that flag you're raising there? So it became a game of question and answers. So through answering these questions, people might learn something. Young girls also ask about the meanings, so they also raise awareness and they become aware of their rights. Feminist demonstrations in Basra made very clear that they lifted slogans. So that we're focusing also on legislations, on law 89. Also there were issues where they were addressing on a political level and in the protest movement in general, these feminist causes. So this may be something that goes also back to what Ina said. I'd like to ask you, social media and her impact on your work as young women. Is it supportive? Is it detrimental? Is something happened, something particular you'd like to share with us? I see social media channels who are very beneficial, and they've been very beneficial, particularly for the October Revolution. In October, when internet was cut off, and there was the oppression happening on the squares, I was filming with others, and I would go back home. And once the internet was big, We will distribute what we'd filmed, and it was thanks to the social media channels. Well, the other channels were maybe not really reflecting and precisely enough what was happening on the squares. They were not reporting on them being kidnapped and not reporting what was happening to this huge number of girls. So that all was not reported, or it was reported but in a very superficial way. Social media and bloggers were really covering these events in the October Revolution on a very personal level. I had an awareness-raising campaign about the danger posed and the threat posed by drug addiction. And through social media, I was able to treat 3 people and to have them leave drugs aside. So they asked me about certain details as a result of my campaign. And they asked me, and how is someone addicted to drugs could get in touch with a hospital. And I then used to guide them to the treatment clinic. So that's something that was made possible by social media. And they have been very instrumental and very beneficial on the general level, on the personal level.
Diana, please give us an idea concerning the role of social media. Of course, we have already got some information, but perhaps your experience is different. Of course, social media, they play a big role in stimulating and mobilizing people and to mobilize people also in the correct way. And my colleague has spoken about the documentation of what happened there in a correct way. And this is very important, that really what is happening there, that this is documented, is also a personal, in our personal interest. And so we are responsible for everything, that this reality is really then published and shown. And of course, this is also important in election campaigns, where it is necessary to call people to take part in the elections, because many Iraqis to date, we don't go to vote, we have no interest in elections, and so we have formed a group and opened a website to show what is the new election documents and the old ones, and so we are, of course, very curious people, and people want to know what is happening. And we also see how is the response to these activities. My girlfriend, for instance, is asking, what did you do there? Where did you go? Why did you do this? So we can regard this as one major basis for any change process, this social media. Ludia, what is your experience in this context? Concerning social media, 2018 women in Basra were exposed to an attack by social media, which even caused some acts of killing. And then we had the demonstrations and protests. We as women, we were exposed to risks and to dangers in trying to bring the perpetrators to court. And for example, there was a video clip about this, what has happened there in the square, and so to show that really happened. And so social media played an important role and showed this very clearly, and also that women were defamed and were insulted. And perhaps this is also a challenge for women, for young women, to take part in such these protests and demonstrations, because sometimes on social media they are insulted or defamed, that they are not honorable and so on. And this was in 2018. Again in 2019, when we went to the streets, they started taking photos of ourselves and to load them on the internet. And this also again said that we are not well educated, but social media can also use for other things to disseminate our ideas and to defend what we want. So I would like to say that social media are a challenge for women, especially in the south here, and name Lubnia is not my real name. It's not the real name of somebody who is on social media. So the use of social media was always a challenge for women, and so we, after many years of the development of the culture, we hope that there will be also a new use of these social media. And the same question to you. What is your experience?
من جهة أتفق ويا لوديا إنه وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي
I have experience which is similar to this of Ludia, and I think this shows that we often have the fact that social media are used to be respective to women and against other religions, also to accuse women, but they also, as possible, to organize demonstrations. Some political events could be really made public. And we can also see what is happening in the West, how people there, what they want and how do they participate. And it is possible to communicate with us as with the people in the West. And this is in addition to the normal media, to the classic media. And there was also there are attempts to take part in online activities and to use social media. We in Nasiriyah, this is the province which was mostly affected by attacks, by killing and by kidnapping and so on. And so, of course, it is necessary that there's also material support given to us, and that also the priorities are set, and this also in order to reintegrate people in the in the population here, and so to get such support, also social media can play an important role, and their role can be good. Ines, I would like to ask you, what are the laws that you give priority for the participation of women in a proper way in all fields of life in Iraq, which may be or should be changed or applied? Of course, we have the hopes of women, and I am among those people who have taken part in the Rose rally, and who have also seen that there's killing and there's chaos in the political process still there. And the most important thing is protection of women in every field of life. And we have the problem that women who speak in the political field, this is often seen as a mistake, and so we need laws to protect women, to protect the children, and so there's still the idea that when women are raising their voice, political voice, then this is outside the religious teachings, and this needs more practice, and this needs to look at the details also. So women to protect laws to protect women in the case that they are beaten by husbands and so on. Also here we need legislation that people, that the husband or other people who are torturing women and hurting women are taken accountable. And this is necessary that women know that the law protects them in these cases. You speak perhaps in 2 minutes, so everybody can please speak for 2 minutes. What do you want to recommend to the participants of this meeting or to other young women in Iraq? I want that there is a real reconciliation in Iraq, that everybody is able to achieve his goal, that we have also awareness raising among women, and that we have one, that we work with in one hand or hand in hand together. The same thing, the same question to Diana. I would like to ask you, what is your feeling? Which are the priorities in legislation, especially for young women? And what is your recommendation for other young women? Of course, I see weakness in the existence of women in the centers of decision-making in Iraq. They are not represented there in the process of decision-making. So the parties should change. There should be quota for women, maybe 50%. And that they are really present in the decision-making centers. And this is important. I think that all women's organizations should fight despite of different positions. They should fight for our common rights as women, and we should really work hand in hand and above or beyond any different definitions, and so and we should not be afraid, and we should express what we want and what are our challenges, and this is what I would like to have.
Thank you, Diane. Helen, if you would like to send out a message to certain people, for example, to religious leaders or tribal leaders or influential people in society, what would your message be so they support the role of young women to also change stereotypes and customs and traditions? And maybe one last message to young women who are like you, who would like to become part of the change. I'd say that it's important to educate women politically, not only on an educational or a scientific level, so that she becomes aware of her role in political participation, because that is the main means to further and forward the cause of women. So the participation of women in the political sphere is going to advance the cause of rights of women and children. So if we are in more prominent positions and leading positions, that would be one of my wishes, of course. We are still missing interaction and networking and communication between us from different regions. I hope that this is going to intensify as organizations and movements, so we can also be within elections more present. Most female members of parliament only express what their parties want them to say, and not expressing what women in different regions of Iraq do feel. The other thing is that we would need to intensify the efforts of civil society organizations so that they include more young women and they raise awareness about their rights and demand their rights. Also the family affairs law, other legislations, and that we prepare the ground for upcoming generations. My message to young women who are going to come after us, that they should keep going and they should have the will. And the most important thing is, which is for me very important, which made me actually go out onto the street, all the International Women's Day, all the protests and the rallies which happened in Basra. So they would need previous experience, and they would have to learn from our mistakes. And I'm quite sure that the generation who was born between 2000 and 2005, that they're much stronger than us. And I wish you best of success. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you and having invited me. And who are also. Thank you very much. Ludia, a message to your community, to parents, to brothers and sisters, a message to societal leaders, to influential people. What are you going to tell them? What is the message you address to them? And then your message to young women. My message to parents and to siblings, that we give us the sufficient space for their spouses and their sisters so they can express what is inside them, because they are convinced that women can bring about change now. They believe in the very personality that they can do something, that they can achieve something without being diminished, and that their demands are not being ridiculized. and that there's something which is worth struggling for, and which she is actually struggling for. If they get the support as young women, my father, for example, supported me, and he was with me all along the way for what I wanted to achieve, and that gave me the full power and force to face what I was facing when I went out on the streets. So any brother, or father, if he believes in his daughter or sister, if he's convinced that she can bring about change, so that she is going to be a successful person in her life. Regarding my message to leaders, that they should provide the space for women who are there so they can express their views, and they can also be involved in taking decisions, not only a formal presence within parties, where it's only parties bringing in women because they are showing off their gender equality. No, women should also be involved in the decision-making process without any pressure that they're being exposed to. Most of women's voices are taken away and are given to other members of the parties, and I'd hope that the leaderships and the parties and entities who are newly entering elections are taking that into account. And I'd hope that there only be a feminist party, an exclusively feminist party. That is one of my wishes, where most young women would wish for a special party or a special entity which is exclusively feminist. My message to young women is, let nothing stand in your way. Love yourself and believe in yourself. Be confident of yourself, and be confident and convinced what you can do and achieve and bring about. You are capable of everything. You're not less worth than a man, and your mind is not less capable of thinking than that of men. No, on the contrary, you're at least capable of as much as men, and you can change yourself and the reality. So don't let any customs and traditions stand in your way when you refuse it. We have seen many girls who were not capable. They do not even have the mobile phones. But over the course of the years, if there is a real women's union and a unified way who can express their voices, so we can really change the reality of society in the right way. And the other thing is, we today as women, we can speak up in the right way. We should not be hostile to each other. I'm supporting all my colleagues here, Inas, Diana. I support all the capable women so they can bring about change. And I'm not going to behave in a way because I love myself. I'm going to oppose other capable women to speak up and to be successful. So we should be a support to each other. And if we do so, and then nothing can shake this power. Thank you very much for your message, Ludia Roa. The last question to you. What would you say? Sometimes we speak with young women in a dialect way. Anyway, what is the next major step to protect the participation of young women in bringing about change and peace building? And what is your last message to young women? Roa? Do you receive us?
Roa?
Roa?
Roa سمعتينا؟
Can you hear us, Roa?
في مشكلة
There is a problem,
تقنية.
a technical issue.
سمعتينا رؤى؟
Roa, can you hear us now?
It's disconnected.
She's disconnected, apparently.
للأسف.
Unfortunately, that's too bad, because we wanted
في أي تعليق حابة أي صبية
any comment you would like to add
النقاش معنا
to the discussion within a minute? If anyone else would like to still say something, please let me know.
ما في؟ تفضلي.
Yes, please. Diana, please. The floor is yours. Take it. We've been saying many things, and there's a lot to say about women's affairs. I would like to pass on the message that we're going to see elections very soon. And women have a golden opportunity here in these elections. We have 83 seats, and we have a quota for women. We have 83 seats which are already assigned to women, except for the women who are going to receive the highest number of votes. So we have the chance of having a quite strong presence of women in the parliament. So I would encourage women to postulate for being elected. So you can get into parliament. It's easier for women than for men, thanks to this quota. Thank you for your participation. That's a golden opportunity for us to have a strong female presence in the parliament. Thank you very much for your last input. I would like to thank all the young women who have been present here with us. That's it. Someone killed the connection. Helle Al-Abdelwahid, Inas Karim, Dina Faraj, Luda Rimon Albert, Wahou Al-Amin from all of Iraq. Thank you very much and all the best to you. Thank you to all of you who were with us over the course of the past 2 years. And the final words are to Birgit Laubach, who is the executive or the head of the Parliament organization. Please.
This was really an empowering panel. Thank you so much to all the young ladies who talked to us. And dear ladies and gentlemen, and dear participants, and dear panelists, and honorable members of the parliament and the government, we are really experienced 2 days of exciting debates and discussions. They were diverse in some ways, but a lot of common sense was always already presented to us. So thank you to all of you who participated in this conference. And just to remember, the resolution 1325 really calls to all states and parliaments to protect women and to give them the rights they are served to. They really want to participate in society. They want to participate in politics. They want to participate in culture. And they really want to be an equal part of the society. After more than 10 years of lobbying, campaigning, and fighting for the domestic violence law, it's really high time to adopt it. And I think that's what we heard in the last 2 days. And it's not only to adopt this law, it's also to implement it. Because that's one of the most problems we always face, not only in Iraq, but in other countries as well, that the implementation of laws that really promote women is a big, big problem. So if we are happy and if we are ready to adopt this law, and I hope this will happen in the next weeks, it's really crucial to monitor, to evaluate, and to get this law implemented. Last but not least, I would like to say a few points regarding to the recommendations that are made. There were a lot of recommendations. I'm very happy about this, and I'm quite sure that we will all pick them up and try to support Iraqi women in putting them into life. This is our task. That's how I see us. And it's not not to bring our Western style to the Iraq. It's just to support you to develop your own way and your own life in Iraq. Last, not least, I would say what we saw too is that networking is crucial, not only within Iraq, between women of all the regions, between rural women and women from the urban areas, but also within the whole region. I think that's my conclusion of this panel we heard yesterday with the women from the MENA region, that it's really crucial to exchange views, to build up networks, and to get to be successful in the views and in the recommendations and in the demands of women of the whole region. Last but not least, of course, I would like to thank again, especially Kinder.
Thank you.
Kinder, you really did a great and fantastic job. So
thank you.
I think for all of us, I will do a big applause for her. Thank you so much. It was great. And unfortunately, our technique doesn't give us that big applause. That would be what would be possible to. Again, I would like to thank the GIZ and the Ministry of Cooperation and Developing for enabling us to have this conference here and for enabling us to have this this project and facilitating this project, Women Talking Peace. And again, in particular, I would like to thank Susan. Thank you so much, Susan. And I know you have participated in most of the parts of this conference, and thank you for your questions too. And of course, again, I want to thank Hansi and the video journalists who facilitated all the technical issues of this conference. We started a little bit humbling, but I think everything today was perfect. So thank you so much to you as well. And last not least, I would like to thank Kenza Radi, who introduced us to the films of her great film project, Women Make Film. I think these films show the situation of women in very different situations. The first film dealt with women who were confronted with Daesh, and the second film showed us a woman, yes, who hoped for 20 years that her husband will come back, and then she was kind of disappointed because he changed so much, and she had developed with her daughter her own way of life, and she had to move away. So thank you, Kenza, again for introducing to us to these films. And just to inform you, our participants who made these films, of course, they will show them in competitions, and hopefully they will get some prizes. And last but not least, I would like to thank my wonderful, gorgeous team of elbarlament who prepared this conference, who really worked for weeks for this conference. So thank you so much to Michaela, to Eya, to Magdalene, to Rosa, to Michelle. I hope I didn't. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it.
And the translators.
Yes. And of course, last but not least, I can't bring you in front to me. I would like to thank the translators for your great work you did these the 2 days. And I would like to finish this conference with 2 sentences. Views of women matter. Women can bring change. Thank you so much and goodbye. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everything.